Hello and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Easter is coming and we are going to do a special mini-series here on the channel about the last steps of Jesus. Starting today with his triumphant entry, we will also follow at the site of the Last Supper, the arrest of Jesus, the Via Dolorosa, Golgotha, Calvary, and end on Easter Sunday with a celebration straight from Jesus' empty tomb. And to accompany me on this fantastic journey, I have a very special guest. Shalom, everyone. Give shalom to my father, Jorge. So, if you guys are ready, let's get started. Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem begins here in Bethphage and continues to the peak of the Mount of Olives. He descends towards the Kidron Valley and climbs again until he enters Jerusalem through the Golden Gate. This path of just over 2 kilometers is full of meaning and also hidden messages. First, why does it start here in Bethphage? It may sound like a somewhat random place, but it's not, quite the contrary. First, we are physically close to Bethany, and we know that Jesus comes from Bethany because he was staying at the house of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. So first we know that he was in this region, and he specifically chooses the region of Bethany and Bethphage because this region was full of Galileans. Even being in Judea, many Galileans lived here, and that's why he also felt among his own. And there's another reason. The Passover lamb, the lamb that was sacrificed in the temple of Jerusalem during the Passover week, it was brought from Bethphage to the temple, exactly the same path that we are going to take today. It's the path that Jesus took, and it was the path that the lamb was taken to the temple. And of course, we can't forget about the biblical prophecies of Zechariah, but we'll talk about them in a bit. I want to go in with you first and show you a bit more of the place of Bethphage. Bethphage means the house of unripe figs. And here was a small village in the times of Jesus. Jesus orders his disciples to fetch a donkey, and they bring it here. Go to the village in front of you, and there upon entering, you will find a donkey tied up, on which no man has yet ridden. Untie it and bring it here. And according to local tradition, it was here where Jesus got on the donkey and began his triumphant entry. Now look at this stone, which is extremely important and also quite different. This stone was the ground level in the times of Jesus, and when the Byzantines, who are the first Christians to build churches in the Holy Land, decide to build a church here, instead of building a church around this place, they simply excavate everything. They lower the height of the entire floor so that this specific part stands out. They literally lower the entire floor except for this part, but this church was destroyed, and for centuries the tradition passed from mouth to mouth that this was the place of Bethphage, and that's why when they decided to rebuild the modern church that we are seeing now, they started archaeological excavations and found the remains of the original church.
So now I want to invite all of you to join us in the walk of the entrance of the ditch.
Let's go, folks. Which was the week that Jesus chose to come to Jerusalem? It was the week of the Jewish Passover, and it was very important as it was one of the 3 annual pilgrimages of the Jews to Jerusalem, which were Pesach, the Jewish Passover, Sukkot, which is tabernacles, and Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. And we know from the Bible itself that Jesus came to these festivals. For example, when he was 12 years old. Now, every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover festival, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the festival day. And because it was the week of the Jewish Passover, the city was filled with thousands of people from Israel and other places in the world who came to celebrate the festival. This area that we are walking in 2,000 years ago, in the times of Jesus, it was open. There were no houses here. This is a new Muslim neighborhood called Attur. And Dad, what do you think of the walk?
I find it tough, not because of the climb, but it's a wonderful and unmissable view.
Guys, it's really a tough climb, as my dad said. Jesus passed through here riding on a little donkey, and the crowd followed him with immense joy and singing psalms. But a good part of the people didn't start following him in Bethphage, but were following him from much earlier. Part of the crowd starts to follow from Jericho, which is quite far from here and also more than a kilometer uphill. Since Jericho is 250 meters below sea level, and we are now more than 800 meters above sea level. Here next to us, we see the entrance to the church of Pater Noster, the Our Father Church. Even though it is on the path of the triumphant entrance, Jesus comes here another day. We know that he came and went many times from the Mount of Olives. One of the times he comes here, he enters a cave and teaches his disciples to pray the Lord's Prayer, which he had already taught before in Galilee. So I wanted to show you, but we are now going to one of the most beautiful places in Jerusalem. Let's go. And now I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel and help us reach 1 million subscribers. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to leave a like as well.
Guys, allow me to show you what it's like to lose your breath. Being here in Jerusalem in front of the Golden Gate where Jesus' triumphant entry ends.
And now we are going to start the descent from the Mount of Olives.
Aline, tell us why Jesus made this journey on a donkey, not on a horse, a camel. Why a donkey?
The little donkey is a very symbolic animal. The donkey symbolizes peace. When a king arrived in a city and wanted to show that he came in peace, he would ride on a little donkey. And if he came riding on a horse, the horse is a war animal. It means he was prepared to wage war. And that's why Jesus is showing that he is the Prince of Peace. And more than that, when he tells them to fetch the little donkey, he orders them to fetch a little donkey that no one has ever ridden. That is, everything here, folks, has meaning, every tiny detail of Jesus' speech. Why a little donkey that no one has ever ridden? Because the animals that were taken to be sacrificed in the Temple of Jerusalem, which is where we are actually going, right behind the Golden Gate, the animals had to be perfect. In fact, we have this passage from the book of Numbers, which says that the animal had to be perfect, and also mentions an animal that no one has ever ridden. And we then see the association of Jesus with the sacrifices in the Temple of Jerusalem. How interesting. And Jesus' arrival on a donkey fulfills the biblical prophecy that is in Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and endowed with salvation. He is humble and is riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And Zechariah also prophesies the coming of the Messiah from the Mount of Olives. And it's another reason why this path is so special.
You see, we are walking here on the Mount of Olives. And why is it called that? Because of the enormous amount of olive trees that existed at the time. And you see that many still exist to maintain the tradition.
Is it written in Luke 19? Seeing the city, he wept over it, saying, "Ah, if you knew also at least in this your day what belongs to your peace. But now it is hidden from your eyes, for days will come upon you when your enemies will surround you with trenches and besiege you and press you on all sides, and they will overthrow you and your children within you, and they will not leave in you stone upon stone, because you did not know the time of your visitation." This tells us that during the triumphant entry, Jesus stops to weep over Jerusalem and predicts its destruction. And according to local tradition, this happened here at Dominus Flevit, and the name of the place means the Lord wept. And so a church was also built on this site that we are seeing now. But how do we know that this modern 20th century church is the place where Jesus wept during his triumphant entry? We know because of what is here. Here we are seeing an original mosaic floor from the Byzantine period, the oldest Christian period in Israel. We know that this is the site of Dominus Flevit, first because there was a tradition that passed from father to son, from generation to generation, that Christians would tell. This is where it happened, and that's why they decided to build this modern church here. And when they started to prepare the ground to build the modern church, they found the remains of the old church. We see the floor and see how well preserved it is. It is 1,500 years old, and the apex of the original church was also found here. So we know that according to local oral tradition and also by the Byzantine archaeological remains, we believe that this is the place. And it also makes perfect sense. Look at the view we have from here. And according to the Bible, Jesus predicted the destruction of the city while looking at it. And this destruction would come to pass in the year 70 after Christ, because in the year 66, the Jews began the great Jewish rebellion against the Romans. And in the year 70, as punishment, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. Where today we can see the Golden Dome is the exact location of the Jerusalem temple. That's why even the name, the Dome of the Rock, it protects a rock, which is the peak of Mount Moriah, where Abraham went to sacrifice his son Isaac. And that's why it makes so much sense that this is the place where Jesus wept, because no other place has such a privileged view of Jerusalem. And he was able to stop here, cry, and see what was going to happen to the city. Today we are making this journey almost alone, but on that day, that Sunday, when Jesus is walking here, riding on the little donkey, thousands of people accompany him, and they sing Hosanna, Hosanna. What is Hosanna? Hosanna comes from Moshiach, save us. And they also sing a little bit of the psalm that we are going to hear now, also in Hebrew. Now we are already approaching the Kidron Valley, but before that, see that there is another church here. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. Let's go in quickly to see what's here. This place saw some of the last steps of Jesus. This is where Jesus came to pray after the Last Supper and where he received the kiss of betrayal from Judas and was arrested.
This olive tree is over 2,000 years old. In other words, it is a living witness to everything that happened here.
Let's continue our journey, and here we already see the lowest point of our walk, which is the Kidron Valley, also known as the King's Valley or the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Many kings passed through it, like Melchizedek, the king of Salem, when he meets Abraham. Also, King David and King Solomon were here. And look how amazing King Solomon passes very close from here, riding on a little donkey. When David orders him to be anointed as the new king. And King David said to them, "Take with you the servants of your Lord, and have my son Solomon ride on my own mule, and take him to Gihon. And there Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet will anoint him king over Israel. Then you will blow the trumpet and say, 'Long live King Solomon.'" And this is exactly what happens with King Solomon, who, like Jesus, is a descendant of King David. In the background, we can already see the walls, which are only 500 years old. Guys, 500 years for Jerusalem is not much. The city of Jerusalem has almost 4,000 years of history. What's happening? The city was destroyed and rebuilt many times, and in wars, the first thing that is always destroyed is the wall. So the wall had to be rebuilt several times, but parts of it have indeed been preserved. Most of the wall today is 500 years old, but we have much older parts, including parts from before the time of Jesus that are still part of it. We are now in front of the Lion's Gate, one of the 8 gates that the old city of Jerusalem has today. But in the times of Jesus, the city had 12 gates, and the gate that was here was called the Sheep Gate, because very close to here was also the sheep pool, also known as the Pool of Bethesda, where Jesus healed the paralytic. But Jesus doesn't enter through this gate. He enters through the Golden Gate, where we are going now. And we will also understand why he chooses that gate and not this one. You can see that we are walking through a cemetery. It is a Muslim cemetery, but it did not exist in the times of Jesus. This area here was open outside the walls, which we can see here to our right. But why does Jesus decide to enter precisely through the Golden Gate? First, it provided direct access to the Jerusalem temple, but also to fulfill the biblical prophecies that are in Ezekiel 44. Behind me is the Golden Gate, also known as the Messiah's Gate or the Gate of Mercy. As you can see, it is sealed today and no one can enter or exit through here anymore. But in the times of Jesus, this was one of the main entrances to the city of Jerusalem. And it was a special entrance because it was the entrance that led directly to the Temple of Jerusalem, meaning if we entered through here, we would face the temple. And again, all this triumphant entrance is very much linked to Passover, to Jewish Passover, and the sacrifices. and the gate was closed in the year 1540 by Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, and since then this is how it remains, and unfortunately we cannot pass through this gate today. Despite being closed for centuries, we still see how important this gate is to this day.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed walking with us on Jesus' triumphant entry. All that remains is to wish everyone a happy and blessed Easter from the Holy Land.
So, folks, happy Easter to everyone. A very blessed Easter. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any episodes of this mini-series. Very exciting, and following the steps of Jesus here in Jerusalem, a big kiss, and we'll see each other.
Shalom to everyone.
We'll see each other in the next videos. Shalom.